Welcome everyone, KD here, and today I want to show you another Unreal Engine tutorial about 2D rendering 3D mesh or a 3D perspective onto an image and then use this image on a widget. For what exactly you can use this, there are different examples. You can, as example, if you make a racing simulator or just a racing game and you want to have a first person view and you want to give the player the option to have to see what is in the back, as example through a mirror or something like that, then you can create with this image with the 2D rendering a second camera view. This can also be used for other game types, of course. I mean, if you have like more cooperative game and you want to have for your player character to see what the other player character sees and things like that. This is just one example to have a different camera view somewhere on your UI, like we have here on our picture. Other things would be, as example, if you have an RPG and in your menu system you have different clothing items or different accessories and so on that look different on your character, then you can create a preview with this as an example, and just things like that. Or if you have dialogues and you want to show an animated face of the guy who is talking right now, you can also do it like this. So there are many options you can do it. This will be a basic tutorial on what you have to look for. It's not an in-depth tutorial, but it gets you started. And this is just for giving you ideas what you all can do for your games. If you want to do something like that, like I said, like having a second camera view or having something like a preview for customizations and things like that. There is, I mean, no end to the ideas you can have. So I want to show you how to do this and maybe give you different examples for different settings you can set this up. For us to create our 2D rendered image into a widget, we need in general three things. First thing is we need an actor. I just chose my player character I made in another tutorial. You don't need a character, but you need at least an actor for creating a 2D rendered image of your 3D model. You can just use your skeleton mesh or your static mesh, whatever you want. You need to create an actor for this, otherwise it won't work. I will show you how you can do this very easily. If you want to create a new actor, you can just go on the blueprint and actor. You can also say character if you want to have a player character with collision and so on already inside. Otherwise you create an actor. Second thing you need is a widget, and for that we go to add new, user interface, widget blueprint. Call this 2D render widget for now. So we go inside here, and here we add an image into. This is just now for the tutorial to present you how it works. Of course, you have to choose the size of your image and how you want it to have it displayed on your UI or however you want to use it for yourself. But here, let's choose a symmetrical or even better, let's do everything the same size. Let's say 800 to 800. So we are the placing is not important right now. And then we can go here under appearance. There under brush you can choose an image. So here you now could add something you created in 2D, text font or another image you want to put in. But if you want to create a rendered target, then you have here two choices. You can use render target or canvas render target. We do now use canvas render target. Then I'm sorry about that. It wasn't. Again, canvas render target. Then it wants you to give it a name. 2D render image, and then where you wanna place it, and place it in here. But now we just have a black image because we didn't have selected the view not for the image. But when we look here, we have now our 2D rendered image. We have here a very small size. We can now also go to 800 to 800. Now that's all we have to do in here. Now we go to our play character or our actor. So if you have an empty actor, if you want to add a mesh, you just add component skeletal mesh or static mesh depending on what you have. If you want to do that, and then you can select your mesh, and inside here you can under mesh easily select the mesh you want. Is this a skeletal mesh or static mesh? Here this example is a skeletal mesh, of course, and we see he's also animated. And if you want now to capture a scene for 2D rendering, you add a new component. I will just tell you to put in 2D, and then you have one option, scene capture component 2D, and you add this here. Now we have this new component. Now you have to do two things with the transformation. So changing the location first. I would say we go forward in the x-axis, that we are for sure in front of our guy, and then we have to turn it around for 180 degrees. So the arrow for the x-axis looks in the direction of our guy. Otherwise we will. So right now we want to capture our main character. If we want to create a second camera as example that looks in another direction, you of course have to change the transformation. This is just for this example here. We don't want to save right now. Then when we scroll down, you have here a lot of options. You can, for now we ignore this because this is too much in depth. We have two other important things. One is the projection, and the other is the scene capture we wanna look at. For the projection, you have two choices between perspective and orthographic. I will show you what is the difference and kind of maybe give you some ideas when you can use which one. Then here in scene capture, we can select our target. Our target is the 2D render image we made. So you can open here up and select 2D render image, and then we see here an example. Now here we have the problem with the visibility, and also when we go to our widget, we have the same problem. So we have to our capture source change it. Default is scene color HDR in RGB, inverted opacity in A. I don't know why. So I mean, if you want your character to be cut off and invisible and everything else visible, then okay, you can choose this. But when you want to see, when we want to focus on our character, then we have to select scene color HDR in RGB, scene depth in A, this one here. Or if you don't want HDR in HD, LDR, one of these two. So we change this, and when we go to our 2D rendering, we see our guy here. So now the difference between perspective and orthographic is when we go to orthographic and we look at our character, we look straight on our character. When we use perspective, then we have kind of a lens form, so it's curved, and depending on what you want, you have to choose between orthographic or perspective. So the problem with perspective and orthographic I can show you in a moment. For that, for using the widget on the best way to do it is showing you in an example. So how to see the widget when we open a level, or we can just go in our, maybe that was again too fast for some. You can go, when we have this map we want this widget in, we go on blueprints, and then we can open level blueprints, and then we get these two options: event begin play or event tick. We don't want to use event tick right now. I suggest over and over again, only put event ticks, really events you really want, you really need to use an event tick. An event tick means the events can change dynamic. Event begin play means you do it only one time, and this is a very important difference. You have to know, so be very careful to put in too much things into event tick. This will use more resources. You can make infinite loops, what will break your games and other things. So we want to do it in event begin play. What we have to do here is we keep our actor here. We create a new create widget. So you just can take from here, draw this, and then the option for placing a new node will come up. So here we choose our widget we created, 2D render widget. It's important that you label everything so you will find it when you use it. Then we make a new node that is called add to viewport, and you connect this too. So right now what we do is just we add it to the viewport. If we have an interactive widget with buttons and so on, we also have to tell the engine, tell the game that we want to have the control on the game and on the widget, or only on the widget when we open this widget. Right now this is not important. So we compile this, leave it like this, and save it. So let's first look at perspective. When we set on perspective, what exactly is the difference between these two? So we have now our image made, and when now we see here it's kinda in a strange angle, so we have to adapt the angle if we want to. But what you see is we see everything the scene has to offer, everything that is in the back and so on. So if you want to create a camera and an extra view, like the back of a character, or like we said, you create a racing game or something like that, and you want to give the option for your players to have first person view, but you also want to see into the mirror to see what is in the back. Something like this will be useful. You also see the animation and everything is rendered in real time. We ignored the error, that's because of something else, don't worry about that. When we set orthographic, then the whole thing is different. We have a blank background. Our character is still rendered, however we don't see a background. So this, however, we don't have the angle problem. We may have a little bit of distance problem, but that's easy to solve. But we don't have an angle problem because we don't have to care about the perspective. It's like we look at the blank page at a plane or something like that. So if you want to create something like, if you have an RPG now and you have you want to create something like a shop preview, or for a shop or anything like that, or just a preview in your menu for different items and how they look on your characters, then this may be the better choice than using perspective, because you don't need the background. You can choose a darker background and so on. That's the difference between orthographic and perspective. If you have questions about that, please leave it in the comments. So again, ignore the error, that's because of something else. I know that's not too well. So if you want to change the distance, important for orthographic is you have to be in front of your character. If you are inside your character, as example, then your character will be cut off in the middle. You see, where we place the orthographic view, it will just only show what is behind that and not what is in front of that. That's important to know. So it doesn't really matter where exactly you place it in front. This won't change this won't change how close you are to the lens. That doesn't matter. It's always the same distance. I can change to 200. Sorry about that. You can change to 200 here, and the distance will stay the same. What you have to change to get closer is the auto light. As example, when we press 200, then we see we close into the character, and when we play this, then we see we are closer. So That's also important to know when you use this, if you want to decide how close something is to each other. Then you have to do this over the ortho-wide, not over the distance you put your scene capture component. It's, by the way, the same thing for cameras. So if you now want a perspective, we can make the field of view bigger. We can, as example, go to 120 to have a better angle. And also here important is now the location of your camera is now important on how close you are to your character. I don't know how far you can go with your field of view. I think you can't go over 180 or over 179, but I will, depending on what you want, you may want to go higher. And that's in general everything you have to know. Like I said, you kinda from here on you can play around with your field of view, with the position, with the location and so on, and just choose your best. So this, if you go really up with the field of view, you will get something like that. If you go down with the field of view, let's say 260. Then we have to adapt the camera again. So maybe this is better for your perspective. You just have to know these two things important between orthographic and perspective. It's important to change your capture source, and that's in general it. That's the basic for 2D rendered images from 3D objects or from just a different camera view if you want that. Like the examples I gave you at the beginning. For this, you can really use these 2D rendered images. They're quite great. If you don't want to have, if you just have a static image, you can also here deselect capture on movements and capture every frame. Then you just if you deselect them, you will just get the static mesh. And you also see that the background doesn't work. Yeah, that's actually all you have to know, at least to start with it. Of course you can go more in depth with this, but for the basics, I think you should know now everything that is there. If there are questions, please leave them in the comments and I will try to answer them as soon as possible. And with that, thank you for watching and please tune in for another tutorial.